There comes a point when everything inside you just pauses, not out of weakness but out of sheer exhaustion. You stop chasing recognition, you stop bending to please, you stop shaping yourself into what others might applaud. And strangely, that's when things begin to fall into place. Have you ever noticed how exhausting it is to constantly seek validation? To live under the constant pressure of becoming someone others will admire? It's like pouring energy into an image while your real self withers behind the curtain. What I'm about to share isn't just another story, it's a reflection, a cracked mirror we all recognize. It's my story, maybe yours too. It's about the invisible cost of living in a society that prizes appearance over authenticity. At first, the idea of not caring anymore might sound reckless or selfish, but think about it. From a young age, we're taught to care too much about our looks, our careers, the way people see us, the likes, the applause, the endless performance. But what if this script is what's silently draining the life out of us? Carl Jung once said, "What you resist persists." The more you fight to control perception, the more disconnected you become from who you truly are. Resistance turns inward. You build a life, not on truth, but on effort. And that's a fragile foundation. This isn't about detachment as neglect. It's about detachment as liberation. Inspired by minds like Jung, Nietzsche, and the Stoic philosophers, this idea pushes a truth most avoid. You don't find yourself by becoming someone else. You return to yourself when you finally stop pretending. This video exists for one purpose: to walk with you through a transformation. Through honest questions, deep insights, and stories that hit closer than expected, we'll explore a path that begins in fatigue and ends in clarity. But first, just take a breath. Let your defenses down. This isn't a message about giving up. It's an invitation to begin again, differently. Have you ever stopped to wonder where exactly you're trying to get to? Since childhood, we've been wired to chase better grades, better jobs, flawless relationships. It's a treadmill existence, constant movement with no real arrival. A modern philosopher once described this perfectly. He argued that in today's world, freedom has mutated into self-oppression. We're no longer pushed by external forces. We've become our own relentless bosses. We demand more productivity, more perfection, more performance, and that burns us out. I've lived that burnout. I've tried to prove myself, to be smart enough, skilled enough, likable enough. I ran on approval. And at night I'd lie awake with a quiet ache, because none of it felt real. It wasn't me I was building, it was a version I thought the world wanted. And you? How much of your identity is shaped by fear? How many of your choices are made for safety instead of truth? That's where the shift begins. Not in ambition, but in honest fatigue. In the moment you admit, I can't keep living like this. There's a quote that stayed with me. It is foolish to strive for others' approval. It is wiser to align with your true nature. But how do we do that in a world where our nature is always clashing with what's expected of us? It starts with letting go, not of life, but of the illusion. Stop carrying burdens that were never yours. Stop fighting battles that aren't rooted in your values. You don't need to become anything. You need to remember who you've always been. And that remembering happens in stillness, in the quiet surrender of performance. That's the first step towards something more honest. We'll go deeper into that in the next chapter. Have you felt it? That sense that no matter how much you mold yourself to fit, something still feels off. The pressure, the unease, the tightness that never really leaves. We live in an age where caring too much has become a silent sentence, worrying about what people think, who we're supposed to be, how we're supposed to act. We live trapped in expectations, most never said aloud, but deeply rooted all the same. This script was born out of long, quiet hours wrestling with a truth many of us know but rarely confront. The weight of carrying a world we were never asked to hold. But here's the question that matters. What happens when you finally put it down? That's the path we're exploring here. Not through shallow motivation, but through depth. Through ancient wisdom, lived experience, and the voices of those who dared to stop performing and started living from within. Because real power doesn't come from applause. It comes from returning to your own center and staying there. There's a strange sickness in the air, one without fever, without cough. It hides behind polished profiles, constant comparisons, and the quiet panic of needing to be seen. It isn't a virus. It's the slow erosion of self. We're not falling apart because we're weak. We're unraveling because we've forgotten how to live without performing. We mistake being visible for being alive, and we trade our souls for approval. One post, one compliment, one performance at a time. No one teaches us how to be whole. They teach us how to impress. From early childhood, we're rewarded for being agreeable, quiet, impressive, but rarely, if ever, for being honest. A child doesn't need many lessons to understand that sadness is shameful, that anger is dangerous, and that authenticity comes with a cost. So they adapt. They hide their confusion behind politeness, their fears behind smiles, their voice behind silence. Years pass and nothing really changes, only the context. Now the applause comes from coworkers, followers, strangers. But the trade remains the same: mask for love. Philosophers have long warned us. Jung spoke of the persona, the mask we wear to navigate society. It protects, but it also confines. Nietzsche challenged us to become who we are, not what the world expects. And the Stoics urged us to surrender what we cannot control, especially other people's opinions. But how do you unlearn a script you've followed your entire life? Not through rebellion, through release. The first step isn't a scream, it's a sigh. It's the moment you whisper, "I'm tired," and finally mean it. It's the quiet decision to stop fighting for a seat at a table that was never built for you, and instead, begin building your own. Freedom doesn't come by becoming fearless. It comes by acting, even while afraid. It means letting go of roles that once kept you safe but now keep you small. Yes, it will be uncomfortable. People may misunderstand, some will drift away, but what stays, what remains after the shedding, is real. And real is what you've been missing. This journey won't be wrapped in motivation quotes. It's messy, human, sacred. And if something in you stirred while listening, that's not coincidence. It's memory. The memory of who you were before the world told you who to be. If you feel that flicker inside, don't let it dim again. Share this with someone who's also been pretending. And if you want to keep walking toward what's real, subscribe. Stay close. The next step begins now. In a world where everyone is trying to look strong, choosing to be real is an act of rebellion. Yet, it is in that very openness, in the cracks, in the confessions, in the stillness, that the roots of true power begin to grow. We spend years learning how to hide, how to become what others applaud. But there comes a point when you begin to unravel, not out of weakness, but because the performance starts to poison you. And this unraveling, it rarely happens quietly. Often it begins with collapse. A heartbreak, a breakdown, a moment so raw it shatters your reflex to pretend. What once made sense now feels hollow. What once seemed urgent now looks absurd. You realize you've been playing a part in a story that was never really yours. That crisis isn't the end, it's the threshold. The old shell begins to crack, and for the first time you hear something unfamiliar, but familiar. Your own voice. Some call it existential dread. Heidegger called it ontological anxiety, the inner conflict of living a life shaped by others. But that discomfort, as suffocating as it feels, is also the invitation to rewrite everything. As you begin to say no to what no longer reflects you, a strange thing happens. The noise fades. The roles fall away. Relationships built on performance dissolve. And in their place, silence, solitude, space. It's terrifying, but it's also sacred, because from that emptiness, something new begins. You start making choices with awareness. You stop reacting and start responding. You no longer chase meaning, you become it. It's not a clean process. It's not graceful, but it's real. Nietzsche once wrote of 3 transformations of the spirit: the beast of burden, the lion of defiance, and the child of creation. This path leads you through all 3. You carry, you break, you rebuild. And what emerges is not perfection, but integrity. Integrity doesn't roar. It hums. It doesn't need attention, it simply is. Soon you notice something strange. The less you seek approval, the more aligned things become. The right people stay. The right spaces open. The right path reveals itself. Not because you chased it, but because you stopped running. You walk lighter. Not because life became easier, but because you stopped carrying what was never yours. And in that lightness, you find a new kind of strength. A strength that doesn't shout, but doesn't shake either. A quiet confidence rooted in knowing you owe no one an explanation for existing. This isn't detachment, it's devotion. A deeper commitment to what matters. You're not indifferent, you've just become selective with your care. You now choose where to place your heart. And yes, the world may not understand. They may call you selfish, cold, changed, and they'd be right. You have changed. You've left the game of performance, of ego, of endless apology. You're no longer auditioning for belonging. You belong to yourself. This is a return, not to a version of you shaped by others, but to something older, truer, a voice you had before the world told you to be someone else. Plotinus once said that the path to wisdom is a return to the origin, not in a religious sense, but as a movement inward, not to become, but to remember. You're not building a new self. You're uncovering the one that's always been waiting beneath the noise. And in that uncovering, life begins to breathe again. Not louder, not faster, but deeper. You laugh more freely, love more consciously, accept mystery without needing to solve it. You stop explaining yourself. You stop rushing. You stop apologizing for your depth. You move through difficulty with grace. Not because it's easy, but because you are no longer at war with yourself. This is not numbness. This is clarity. This is not ego. This is alignment. You have not stopped caring. You have simply begun to care wisely. And that is the truest freedom of all.